And that's my segue into your tip of the week, which has to do with adjusting to evolving customer expectations.
Yeah, good one, Rich. Nice segue. And we've talked a little bit about this on the podcast before. It's MSPs, needing to shift towards addressing the needs of the post-pandemic buyers, right? The ideal customer profile that MSPs had 5 years ago is probably different than what their ideal customer profile is today for many reasons, Rich, right? Buyers are buying different things. Their challenges are different as a result of the pandemic. I mean, cyber threats are on the rise. SaaS applications and platforms are growing in numbers, being used inside of organizations. The need for increased, if not notably increased support for remote workplace management and things like that. But, you know, just more prescriptive kind of a tip of the week this week about how we can meet the needs of these evolving client expectations. We know that, we're shifting in a different direction. We're moving more toward the cloud. We're moving more toward applications and things like that. This is where business is going. But how do we not only meet those client expectations of where we are now, but how do we continue to lead them forward and be that true value added business partner? I was going to say trusted advisor, Rich, but it's, sometimes I think that that's a little bit getting tired. It's more of a strategic business advisor, strategic business partner. Jay McBain, shared with us on the podcast how there's kind of seven strategic relationships that every business owner wants to have. And, the MSP fills one of those. So how do we meet those expectations? Number one, so one of three, mini tips within the tip, educating clients about the value and benefits of moving in a particular direction. So focusing our conversations around business outcomes, business growth expectations, and rather than the technology behind stuff, like not how we make the lasagna, but how delicious the lasagna is and how it makes you feel after you've had lasagna. I pick lasagna, Rich, because it is my favorite food. If I were stuck on a desert island and I only had one thing that I could eat for the rest of my life, lasagna is at the top of my list. Just quick, Rich, what's yours?
You know what popped right into my head is if I'm stuck on a desert island and I've got all the pizza I want, I'm probably a happy guy.
All right, so we are both Garfield, is what you're saying, in another life. Okay, so educating them on what the outcome is, what the benefits are, and then letting them know that we are the watcher on the wall. We are going to continue to explore and recommend services and solutions to help clients get there, right? Whether it's delivering technology, whether it's managing vendors, right, under client vendor management, whether it's just being there to help them get more out of the technology they've already invested in, right? Leading them through the perils of cybersecurity landscape, AI, and how best to use it and what not to do, that kind of stuff. Number two, delivering more personalized services. Rich, we have all bought in at a certain point as MSPs, me as a recovering MSPs, and in the IT, in the enterprise, of the importance of standardization and how it increases efficiency and it, lowers costs and things like that. But when everybody is standardizing, then you get a lot of the same. So how do we tailor our services in a more personal way to meet the client's needs? Some of us will do that by creating very vertical or niche market focus and then communicating in a more direct and personal manner with clients. like we touched a little bit on a recent tip of the week around that client communication, and it was all about retention and client satisfaction, right? Well, the same thing works for us when we are trying to meet our clients' expectations, lead them through change. Change can be difficult, and sometimes clients need to build another layer of trust and confidence in us in order to say yes to things that we want them and advise them to do. The best way to do that is to deliver that in a more personal manner. Are we doing QBRs or strategic meetings with clients? Are we reaching out and touching them more often and doing more of an account management or a client success manager type of an approach to managing that relationship, making them feel like they are the only VIP client that we have? Number three, Rich, implementing a system to get regular feedback from our clients, and not simply the expecting the little, frowny or smiley face, rate the last ticket that we closed for you kind of feedback I'm talking about, is constructing very specific and unique 3 or 4 question surveys that we send out to the users and maybe even the business owner themselves, that are talking about their work and their challenges and their workflows. Sometimes we're so concerned, Rich, with delivering service and managing the infrastructure and the platforms and the SaaS applications and the risk, that we miss out on that human feedback, because it's not only building a relationship with the business decision maker, it's also building a relationship and a connection with the users that we're serving. And sometimes, Rich, well, I've had this experience with partners that I've worked with where one of the users or a handful of users has been so dissatisfied with an MSP's service desk or performance or something, where the business owner really didn't feel the same way, but ended up eliminating that relationship with the MSP because they're influencers and they're vocal about it. So how do we stay on the right side of the clients, of the users? How do we ask for their feedback and deliver value beyond closing tickets, right? And maintaining business continuity with those users, asking more specific questions to them, maybe even having a little focus group, little virtual meeting with the users and asking more specific questions, maybe by business unit. So you can ask very specific questions from, a financial unit or an HR unit, right? Or a sales unit, to determine, what challenges are they having? Well, we are doing everything on Excel spreadsheets, for instance. We could use a CRM, or for, financial folks that are like cutting invoices and taking 14 mouse clicks or more if you're an MSP, wink, wink. How can we help maybe recommend an upgrade to their platform or bring in some options, right, to make their jobs easier? So it's all about understanding where our clients are, Rich, delivering more value from our relationship than just the day-to-day, closing tickets and that kind of thing. And then meeting their expectations by connecting with them much more closely, asking the right questions about where they're going with their business, and then educating them on how we can help them achieve those business outcomes rather than just being, an outsourced IT department.
What's interesting about all three pieces of advice there, interesting and maybe challenging for some of the folks in the audience here, is none of it has really anything to do with technology. Listening to the client, being mindful about feedback and user satisfaction, and delivering a more personalized experience, having an outcome-based conversation with the client about new technologies and the business value of embracing those. All those are about how you interact with the client and how you focus your time when you're interacting with them, which I think is really important advice. And I also think, for a lot of folks in the MSP world, that's maybe not, where instinct leads them naturally.
Yeah, it's a good point, Rich. And, I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking, are you kidding me, Eric? I'm juggling 85 fireballs, right now. How am I going to, find the time to do this with my clients? And I would say, well, look at your look at who you're serving and look at the clients that you want to make sure that you keep and can build deeper and wider relationships, increasing lifetime client value. And then look at the, let's call them the C customers that, are probably your less ideal customers, and ask yourself the hard question: would I be more profitable and able to scale more broadly if I released this particular customer back to industry? Because we're also dealing with, the challenge of hiring, technical staff and things like that, and the cost of that today, Rich. I look at it from the perspective of, well, if we're serving our clients in this more personalized VIP fashion, they will pay for a better experience. We can increase our rates, and the next clients that we bring on can fit that ideal client profile that we now present to them, and position and sell our services in a very uniquely different manner to attract the folks that want to drive the most luxurious car of the luxury car class at the dealership, and not, the base model.
It pays to pay attention to customer expectations in precisely the ways Erick recommends, folks. Thank you for that, Erick.